Thank you for joining another conversation, Quick Hits. Today, I would like to ask the question, does an organization or a business need to know how someone is differently abled, like label them, autistic or hard of hearing or whatever the label might be, to be able to offer assistance? Do they need to know who you are?
No, personally, I don't think so. I mean, I am an adult with autism. I've also many years ago worked in HR in hospitals, and a lot of the concessions, if you will, which I don't even
That's a
consider it that.
horrible word, isn't it?
It
Yeah,
really is.
it
But
really
that's
is.
usually the one that's used in bureaucracy, and it's like, it's really, you're adapting to different people because everyone has different needs. And for example, one of the ones that, everyone across the board, it was really, really harming was the lighting we had because it was, the 70s fluorescent lighting panels. And we had people who were all across all sorts of, neurological setups within their bodies that were having issues with this. Also sound. Sound is insane. Like people that have yes, I'm autistic, but I also have really severe post-traumatic stress disorder, complex post-traumatic stress disorder. So areas where there's loud noises and loud voices, especially like making sure the staff uses indoor voices, period, because no one needs to be singled out. But a lot of these things that people are dealing with and having to basically muscle through at work, a lot of neurotypical people or other people that are maybe not autistic but have other background things going on like depression or higher sensitivity to any of their senses. There's a bunch of other things that could be going on that all of these extra stimuli that would be driving an autistic person crazy are also probably driving a lot of other people crazy too, that are just trying to deal with life on life's terms.
Mm-hmm. Completely agree. That was my experience as well. I've worked in business for 7 years, again, HR, administrative, on the C-level team. And we noticed a huge difference the second we started doing little things like Summer said, we swapped out the lights to more natural lighting. We added a small quiet room that was just a conference room, but it was a room that purposely had a dimmer switch. And these are things that, I mean, as Summer said, concessions is a horrible word. We called them resources, and I like the word resources because honestly, everybody benefited from that. I would notice very stressed out execs going into our quiet room that had natural lighting so they could turn it down and get a quiet moment to themselves. And I think that's really where I stand on your question, is that really there are so many things that we can do that would make your, again, quote unquote, neurotypical or normal worker also benefit while helping those that do need or would like some extra resources.
So we mentioned lighting, we mentioned sound. What other kinds of things could an organization do that is not going to be disappointing or a challenge for the neurotypical person that might be helpful? What other ideas can we offer?
Sure, absolutely. And this one's going to be a sensitive one. Enforcement of the code of conduct. Most people who are neurodivergent are very, very aware of social engagement and social interactions simply because we've been socially groomed, whether it's male or female. And I'm not going to get into the gender question of who's more groomed right now. But either way, we are groomed for performance of a certain type. But I have noticed just from real experience, those code of conducts of using those polite manners, of minding your manners, and a case in point, allowing everyone to finish their sentence in a meeting. This is something that for someone who has autism, depression, PTSD, ADHD, all of them are going to really struggle, and it's going to create a larger emotional repercussion than the neurotypical person who might be like, "Ugh, he cut me off again," moving on in life. So we are inadvertently creating much bigger backlashes than we realize through doing simple things like not honoring what we said we would as a corporation, as an organization, as a team.
Not lying is huge, especially not just for people with autism, but that is a lie. When you say there's an expectation and then you don't meet it, you lied. Period. If you meant to meet it and like, oh, maybe I'm working on it, then say that. But if you meant to meet it and you just dismissed it, you lied, period. Which again, not just people with autism that are like that, for me was huge. It was funny because actually as a kid, there was a lot of times I would socialize by lying with people because I thought that's how neurotypical people talked. Because
Absolutely.
so few people said what they meant. they lied, and they would tell you lip service and do the opposite. So I thought lying was just the way to communicate. And so if you're putting somebody who has gone through occupational therapy, regular therapy, all of the therapies to learn how to communicate in a healthy way in an environment where they're forced to do the opposite, not only is that low level emotional abuse, just that environment and period, but you're also putting, oh my God, so much damage on that person who's gone so far only to like be shoved back to where they are, as well as the fact that it makes, even again, for people who are more neurotypical, almost everyone has some sort of mental disorder, like period. Almost everyone deals with anxiety or depression or really just crappy sense of self-worth. Almost everyone deals with something like that on a normal level. And so if on top of it, you're having to mitigate what's a lie and what's not, and have these extra little stresses, they add up tremendously. And a lot of times what people don't realize too, or think about, which we do in school with kids and we do at work, is what are these people are getting left with at the end of the day to bring home to their families? And when they are so stressed out all day and spending all their extra spoons of trying to figure out, like, are they lying or are they not? Is this an expectation or is it not? Is this meeting, you know, the boss is going to make sure that Karen isn't a Karen to me again in front of everyone, publicly humiliating me again? Or am I just going to be thrown to the wolves and like, well, you know, everyone has someone they disagree with, toughen up, or some sort of thing like that. The amount of stress that takes just to get through the day, by the end of the day, if you have more people relying on you, like, you're mean, you are just downright mean, you're burnout, and you are a nasty human being. And so, like, even if it's not an autistic person, we're also sending home a lot of these workers to their kids and their families mean, because they're burned out from the whole day of not being able to trust what's going on, having an overwhelming environment, having no break, having people that are, you know, you can't trust if they're out to get you, out to harm you, because you can't trust anything out of their mouth. That level, like, that condition actually is what causes like CPTSD in a lot of people, like, period. If you grew up in that as a child, like, you would be not okay as an adult. So if you're doing that as an adult, how does anyone expect anyone to be okay? They can't be.
Right. So that's interesting. How do we, and I'm going to say we as organizations,
sure.
How do we notice that and catch it? Because I'm hearing you guys talk, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, that's across the board. That happens in every single conference room I'm in.
Absolutely. And this is a really good one that I liked. And I actually honestly learned this from a CEO that I worked directly with. I was his executive assistant. And what he would do two things. If it happened in a meeting, he always made sure everyone had a seat at a meeting. But if it happened in a meeting, he would stand up. And just the simple physical action of him standing up would interrupt everyone, because one, the leader of the meeting, and then I watched the VPs do it. Because the CEO set that example of, hey, I'm going to physically change where I'm at. I'm going to stand up, which in most cultures and in most polite manners, when somebody, especially the host, stands up, it is a call to attention and it is a signal to the end. And usually that's exactly what he would do. He would call it out, not call, hey, Karen, hey, Susan, hey, Tom. He wouldn't call people out, but he would say, this conversation is no longer productive, and would walk out of the room.
Wow.
Secondly, just one more thing. Secondly, what I was going to say is the second thing that I really liked that he instituted as a mandatory policy across all boards is, outside of your employee one-on-one where you had to discuss goals and how are your projects going, if you had a direct report, such as myself, he would mandate that we have a reverse one-on-one where there would be 1 hour where we would talk about all my things that I needed to do, and 1 hour where we would talk about all the things I needed from him. Because even as an employee, as a worker, as a subordinate, you have things you need from your manager, from your director, from your exec, whatever, your team lead. And if these types of microaggressions, so to speak, though I think they're more than microaggressions because they add up, build a wall where you can no longer do that. And so he instituted a policy where everybody had to talk. It didn't matter if you fought with your manager on Monday. When your Friday one-on-one came up, you had to talk about it.
Interesting. Well, we're right at 10 minutes right there. And I know it goes by so fast, doesn't it? So I would like to put an end to this one, but let's consider what we want to talk about next, because I think this is a super important subject. So thanks for having this conversation with me.
Thank you so much.